here. All right, and I'm going to share my screen right here. Share. And that. And let's go back a little bit here. You guys are seeing the presentation in reverse. All right, so let me introduce Beverly Westberg, and I have been working together for probably a little bit over a year. And she was, last time we talked, which was last month, Claire had such a great presentation on 3 books that she felt were impactful that she wanted to share with the group. So then Beverly and I started talking about that presentation and what Beverly potentially wanted to present to you guys. And she came with calorie density. So I'm going to pass it off to Bev and start the timer. And she wants to present to you guys on calorie density. This is an interactive presentation. So Bev, you have the floor. Take her away.
Okay, first I would like to say thanks to everybody, but I want you to bear with me because I have never done this. When Mike said, when I was excited about some of the stuff Claire had said and done, he said, well, would you like to? And I'm thinking, okay, 5-10 minutes, I can handle that. Well, it's now an hour, so it's like, oh my gosh. Anyway, so I probably, in fact, I know I will probably be reading from some notes, so just bear with me. It'll be okay. First, I do want to say to Claire, this book, thank you very much. When she spoke to us in the lesson call, she talked about the book, 72 Reasons to Be Vegan. This is a great little book. It's very concise, to the point. It's loaded with great information that is cited and evidence-based on why we should be vegan. So it's really it's a good bathroom reader too, by the way. So maybe that's too much information. Anyway, so just want to say that, Claire, thank you for sharing that with us.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. I really enjoyed that book too.
Okay.
So.
All right. Now, like Mike said, we're going to be talking about calorie density. As you can see, a better way to say calorie density, I think, is to say to be calorie smart. So going from calorie dense, like duh, to calorie smart. And anyway, one of the things in the upper right hand corner, you see this little statue. And I really like this image. I've since seen one that is a man, but I really like this, except I know it's not so easy as taking a chisel and a hammer or whatever, but to transform our bodies. I think this is, whole food, plant-based, and exercise is and all the other things that Mike teaches is the way to go. So it's really an inspiration, kind of. I always thought of myself sort of, kind of as smart, not brilliant, but sort of smart, except in one area of my life, which I never got it together, and that was with weight management. Through my life, I've probably been through, probably truthfully, honestly, 50 at least diets. Through my teen years, although I was never heavy as a teen until I was in college. I wasn't even heavy then until I got married. That's what did it to me. Anyway, so I always thought I had it together, but the weight management piece was the one area that I did not have it together. And I literally spent a fortune on, weight loss programs, books, supplements, you name it. And I would, on all of these different programs, I would lose some weight, and then I would gain it back, and then I would lose some weight, and then I would gain it back. So, the sustainability for me was horrible, and I just kept getting heavier and heavier and heavier. So nothing really worked. And so if nothing worked, then I figured it had to be me. I was an idiot. That's all it was, But what I've come to learn now, thanks to the whole food plant-based journey and to Mike and all the support, is that it's really the tools that you need to tap into and learn about our culture and how our culture is really contributing to all of our poor health if we're not paying attention. So anyway, so finally at the age of 67, I do think I'm finally kind of getting it. for the first time in 20 plus years, I'm at the lowest weight I've been, with, again, a lot of thanks to Mike. So one really valuable concept is the idea of calorie density, which is what we're going to be talking about. And as you'll notice, they'll lose weight with a full plate, and that is absolutely the goal. You do not want to be hungry. You don't have to be hungry. And so, okay, so next slide. Next slide.
I'm sorry.
Oh, thanks. Okay. A calorie density chart allows us to compare caloric values. It's, first of all, what calorie density is. It's how many calories are in a given amount of food. It's a very simple, it's a big word or whatever for a very simple concept. How many calories are actually in a given amount of food. And usually you will find when you see calorie density charts, like in this one, it's per pound that they're actually comparing the foods. So we'll be talking about that in just a second. It's a good way to compare low calorie versus high calorie. It's a good way to compare where the nutrients are versus where they are not. And if you look at this chart, the green line, there's a green line and a red line, and then what you see is above the vegetables, the fruit, the whole, the corn, the potatoes, the squash, so forth and so on, up to the 600 calorie mark. And those are all whole food from nature as intended, without, you know, all the other stuff, the processing, the sugar added, the oil added, the salt added, the chemicals added, or whatever. This is the above the line is real food. And that's what we want to focus on. Below the line, with the exception of the avocados and the nuts and seeds, you've got processed foods. You've got stuff that's called food. And some cases, like with maybe with the pasta and stuff, it's food, and some of the whole grain breads. But other than that, you're getting pretty much away from what's real food. And so that's you know what this chart is all about. So being able to quickly see it, being able to quickly say, okay, I know this is where I want to eat. Then comes the question, well, what am I going to eat? But okay, next slide. While that last slide, I probably shouldn't have you go yet, but anyway, the last slide was just calories per pound. But what I found for myself, calories per pound did not really always make sense. I mean, calories per pound, I can understand in terms of comparative value, but in terms of realistic measurements and things, it didn't make sense. And so I kind of created my own from the other one. And I added a few other categories, like instead of per pound, per cup, because I don't ever intend in my life, or at least I hope to not ever eat a pound of oil. That was not relatable to me. A pound of oil in one sitting or two sittings or whatever, that just seems ridiculous. But anyway, so I wanted to break it down into what was more realistic. A pound of chocolate, that is realistic to me. I can do that. A pound of chocolate, that's 2 pounds of chocolate, 3 pounds of chocolate, depending on which box of Halloween candy, Valentine's candy that I get. It would be possibly 2 or 3 pounds of chocolate. Now my spouse and son are probably not going to be so generous now that I've become, you know, more whole food plant-based. But anyway, so the whole idea is to eat more, way less, live longer. And again, you want to go above and below. I mean, you want to go above the line. Now, if you'll notice on this one, some of the things that I changed, where I added some things on, it's good for me to know, like under the legumes and beans, it's good for me to know what chickpeas are per cup, because I eat a lot of chickpeas. So I just, when I'm, you know, I never count calories, or I don't measure and weigh, but I do estimate all the time. I'm just sort of eyeballing it. I'm looking at it and I'm saying, okay, this is like 300, 600, you know. So I'm just kind of estimating it so that I know how many I'm getting. And I know I've been wrong because, and especially, I'm going to tell you this one story later about the oil. In fact, I'll tell you pretty soon. The oil, when you go down here to the very bottom, can you guys see my arrow? No. Okay, we go to the very bottom where it's talking about all oils. And so I went to 125 calories per tablespoon, 250 per ounce, the 2,000 per cup, and the 4,000 per pound. And one of the places that we have to be super careful, and Mike's always talking about this, is when we eat out, you're really not knowing how much oil is in there, or how much sugar, or how much salt, or whatever. And so you can get into some really troublesome spots if you're not careful. And I decided, for the sake of this group, that this weekend I was going to test this, because I love a few of the Oriental restaurants. I love them because you can get a ton of vegetables, and that's great. And so I thought, okay, well, I am going to test this. And I called one of the restaurants and I said, I want as little oil as possible, but this is what I'd like to order. And I ordered a couple of vegetable dishes. I brought it home, and it looked like it had less oil than what I'd had in the past. You sometimes see that little layer of oil around the edge of the containers. Well, I didn't see that. So it looked pretty good. So I decided, I drained off the entire liquid, and thinking that, there's not much here. Well, I got 6 ounces out of that container. And then I felt it with my fingers, and it felt greasy and oily, and it didn't pass the snap test, which means, that there's a lot of fat there. Plus, when I actually drained it off, I could see those little beads where before I couldn't really see them. So, I'm not sure how much oil was really in that, but I figure for 6 ounces, it could have been anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 calories, maybe, or 1,200 calories at least. So while I'm thinking I'm doing great, and the vegetables are great, the oil was not so great. So that was kind of a wild wake-up call. Also on this chart, one thing that I added at the very bottom, if you'll notice, the other calorie density chart didn't have this. I added eat less sofas. This is a Chef AJ quote. And the sofas meaning literally and figuratively, get off the sofas, move off the sofas. You want to move off for movement, obviously, but an acronym SOFAS is for salt, oil, flours, alcohol, sugar. So you want to start bringing those down, eliminating them, whatever, that's starting to get off of them. Okay, next slide. Oh, but you know what? Go back to the last slide for just a minute, because I did just think of something when I looked at my notes. I don't know if this is. So when I look at this and I say, okay, I want to eat really low calories, and I go to the top two, which are like really low calories, the vegetable and fruit. I think, okay, I'm going to lose weight. This is going to be quicker. What could be a problem with that, do you think? Is there anything that could be possibly maybe not the greatest choice by just eating the fruits and the vegetables at the top, the very two?
What do you guys think?
What was that? It's hard to get filled up.
Absolutely. That's absolutely right. And the problem with that is that is exactly the reason diets fail, is because we get hungry and we get to the point that it's like, well, I'm going to have this ice cream or whatever. So how can we plan ahead with the other foods in above that line? Because they have actually done research on this, and they have found that as long as you are eating above the line, you can lose weight, and you will lose weight, and you will be happy. But what can we do to make that just the fruits and vegetables? What could we add to make that a little more sustainable, a little more substantial? Any thoughts? What about it, looking at the bottom three? What could we pull in with the fruits and vegetables that would complete that meal?
Starches like potato or brown rice or beans, legumes.
Mm-hmm. And that's going to actually cause you to stay full, have the satiety,
Yeah.
and it's going to be more sustainable. And this is really one of the reasons I think that we really, well, it is one of the reasons that people fail, is because they don't get full, they don't stay satisfied. And then especially when you get to that stage of cranky, hangry, hungry, angry, feelings, then it's just like cash in everything and just eat whatever's in front of you. So it's worth paying attention to. Okay. Okay, let's see. Okay, so now we can go to the next slide. Okay, now on this one, what you'll see, this is what slide? This is slide 4. Okay. On this one, what you'll see is our stomach with 400 calories of whatever. And the first one, you see the 400 calories of oil, 400 calories of chicken, 400 calories of vegetables. And what you see, what do you notice about this first one?
Doesn't take a lot of room.
Doesn't take a lot of room. And if you actually look into it, oil, which by the way, is the most calorie dense food on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a lot of calories. But if you look at that, there's no fiber, there's no water, there's no nutrients except for fat, just pure fat. Then you look at the chicken, and again, no fiber, no water, lots of calories. And I mean, there's protein, certainly, but you're also looking at a good way to possibly clog your arteries. So, and then you look at the last one, which is a stomach full of fruits, or not fruits, but vegetables. You got your greens and your non-starchy vegetables. And that is going to fill you up. It's going to be loaded with nutrients. The only thing that I would add to this possibly would be a little bit of a starch, maybe a little bit of potato, a little bit of corn, just to increase the satiety. Now those might be seeds or something, so maybe I missed that. So it might not be so bad after all. I mean, it's not bad, it's great. It's just that you want to get rid of the you don't want to have hunger for sure. So you want to go with something that's going to give you something that's going to make you feel full. Okay. Next slide. This is the same thing, but with instead of 400 calories, the next one is 500 calories. And so again, you've got your oil, your cheese, your meat, your potatoes, your fruits and veggies. Now on this, again, you've got the oil, which is pure fat. Then you've got the cheese, which is delicious and everything. But with the cheese, you're also getting a ton of fat. Plus with the cheese, you're also getting possible carcinogens. Like, what's the word? Casein or whatever that's in the milk products. Huh?
Casein protein.
Casein, okay. And I've even read that, actually this came from the 72 Reasons to be Vegan. It talks about the milk cows, and that what you're getting is a lot of pus in cheese, and you're getting a lot of trauma from the cows. I mean, maybe some people would debate that, I'm sure. Anyway, so as you go further to the right, it gets healthier and healthier and healthier. The last two are both great. So, okay. Anyway, all right. Next slide. Okay, this one's, okay. Each of these is just 500 calories. Okay. So the apples, then you've got apple juice, then you've got apple sauce, and then you've got, actually, these look like walnuts, but they're supposed to be apple slices. So which of these, I mean, obviously, I don't even need to ask the question, but it's obvious that the apples are going to fill us. 400 or 500 calories of applesauce or apple juice is going to taste good, but it's not going to, and so are the dried apples, but it's not going to sustain us very much. And this is kind of funny. I remember early in my conversations with Mike, I was really proud of myself one day. This was about a year ago or so. I'm diabetic. And so, you know, I've sometimes got morning blood sugars that are very low. And so I have to have something quick. And so I was really proud of myself. And I was telling Mike that I put some containers of applesauce next to my bed because I thought I was being proactive. It was healthy. You know, it was not the candy bars and all that stuff that would be easily eaten too. So I was so proud of myself. And Mike very calmly says, I said, you know, so I'm really doing a good job. And he very sweetly and very calmly says, well, why don't you just eat the apples? And I mean, literally, that was like, for me, a deer in the headlights moments, because it was like, I never would have even considered that. That was just, and so now next to my bed, I have apples and clementines, you know, so that something that's healthy and something that's whole food all the time. So I just thought that was kind of an interesting experience when it came. Oh, I know what I wanted to say with that. And this is where I keep not looking at my notes. So what Chef AJ would say, the lesson that what Mike taught me was eat the fruit, the whole fruit, and nothing but the fruit. So I thought that was kind of cute. So anyway, next slide. Okay, which is more filling? A pint of ice cream, a half gallon of raw salad, 3 ears of corn, 2 baked potatoes, and a pound of cherries. So which do you think would be more filling?
The one on the bottom.
Well, Mike says the one on the bottom, and that's absolutely true. But when I saw this slide, my very first thought was the ice cream would be more filling because it was a pint. It was a good amount. I can eat a whole pint really easily and not feel deprived. But then I was a little disappointed because then I started thinking, okay, but after a half hour, an hour or so, I'm going to be wanting a lot more food. So I'm thinking, okay, this is going to take me longer to eat. It's definitely going to be more nutrient dense in terms of providing me with what my body needs. And, you know, it's going to have, whereas the ice cream is just pure fat and sugar. Pretty much, I mean, other than that, that's it, fat and sugar. So, you know, reluctantly, I gave in and thought, okay, a half gallon of raw salad, 3 ears of corn, 2 baked potatoes, and a pound of cherries, and I am going to be delighted, you know. So anyway, okay. When I saw the pint of ice cream, it was like, I think part of the issue of why I thought it was quickly filling was because I think my dopamine receptors, or whatever you want to call them, just went crazy and said, yes, I get to eat a pint of ice cream, you know. So, but anyway, it's the other foods that really we want to fuel our bodies with. So, oh, and the other thing with the ice cream, the problem with the fat and the sugar, besides that there's no nutrient value except fat and sugar, is that what's going to happen to the fat that we eat? I mean, according to Dr. McDougall, the fat that we eat is the fat that we wear, because our bodies actually process carbs for glucose or whatever first. So then it doesn't even go to the fat until after it's processed the glucose for the carbs for the glucose or whatever. So what it does is it goes straight to our fat reserves. It doesn't even pass go. It just goes straight to our it does pass go. It goes straight to our fat reserves, and we don't start burning that until after we burned some of the other stuff. So that's why Dr. McDougall says the fat you eat is the fat you wear, because it's kind of literally true. Our body, let's see, here we go. Whenever Jeff Novick, wait, am I on the right slide here? 7, okay, next slide. Okay, Jeff Novick, he's a registered dietitian, pretty popular in the whole food plant-based world. One of the things that he says all the time is you eat more and this is where calorie density comes in. With whole food plant-based, you eat more, you weigh less, and you live longer. So, I mean, you know, the way we've been taught our whole lives is how can you eat more and weigh less? Well, that's because we're being taught wrong. We need to eat, you know, the whole foods, and we can truly eat more. He also talks about carbs, which, by the way, have been incredibly misrepresented and misunderstood in our culture, because they use the word carbs for everything. That's, you know, whether it be refined carbs, whether it be processed, whole food carbs, whether it be complex carbohydrates. I mean, this is all confusing. You hear words like complex carbohydrates, refined carbs, you know, bad carbs, good carbs, and it gets really confusing. And one of the things that makes it even more confusing is that sometimes doctors and dietitians even, and nutritionists, they will tell us that we need to cut the carbs for weight loss and for lowering our blood sugar and so forth. And that's not entirely untrue, but it's misleading because we don't want to cut out all the carbs, but that's kind of what we think. And actually, in all fairness to doctors and dietitians and stuff like that, one of the things that Jeff Novick talks about, is it Novick or Novick?
Novick.
Novick, okay. One of the things that he talks about is that 90% of our calories actually come from, I think I got this right, come from carbs, but those are like white flour, white sugar, sodas, white rice, all the processed junk food that we eat. So if that's the case, yeah, we do need to cut out those carbs because those are not really being helpful to our bodies. In fact, he says if it's calorie rich and processed, notice the letters crap, we need to cut out the crap and go with the good, healthy carbs that are whole food. And, you know, I keep saying words like whole food because that has been a concept that really has not been in the mainstream a lot. You know, that we want to eat the whole food. Because we've really been led to believe that all the other stuff that's on the shelves, that has labels in a lot of cases, or that are on the shelves, that those are food, and they are food, but they're not necessarily what our bodies really want. So eat more, weigh less, live longer, cut out the crap. Okay. And again, I said, our bodies use both sugar and fat as energy. Those are the two sources of fuel for our bodies. And our bodies first will use the sugars, or because it's for glucose, because the brain only can be fueled by glucose. The brain cannot be fueled by fat, according to the stuff that I've read. And I mean, some of the stuff I say, I hesitate because even though, you know, it's in the good literature and stuff, sometimes it makes me nervous that maybe I'm not right. But our brain is fueled by glucose and our cells. But, you know, our bodies are not wanting those other kinds of, we get glucose from the refined carbs, but that's not what our body's really wanting or needing. But we do need the glucose. That's why I think it burns the sugar first before it goes to the fat, to fuel the brain. He says that Novick says that it takes about 500 calories a day of glucose to fuel the brain. And that's ongoing throughout the day. So it's always going to be looking for sources. And, one of the things that sometimes, with diabetics, if a person gets to a point that they are starting to lose their mental capacity and have some of the issues that are related to really low blood sugar or whatever, sometimes they will eat something that is not healthy, a refined carb or whatever, refined sugar, because they've got to get the sugar in there. It's better to go with a fruit for sure. It's going to be a little bit slower, but it's going to be much healthier. So, okay, let's see. 500, okay. So we want to keep it simple. We want to, the next slide, you can go on to the next slide. Okay, another way of thinking about calorie density is to look at this calorie density plate. And this is what we call a 50-50 plate, where you literally take half of your plate and you make it fruits and vegetables, and then you make half of your plate starches. And why do you think this is important? We've already talked about this a little bit. Why the starches? Why can't we just do the fruits and vegetables and be done with it? Why the starches?
They give you energy, they give you satiety, they
Right.
taste good, it makes it sustainable that you can do this.
Right, and it keeps you on especially like for your brain, a good potato is going to keep you slowly fueled, but consistently fueled over the course of time. So that's really important. The fruits and vegetables, they're going to give us a ton of nutrients and a ton of variety and taste and all that, but the potatoes and the starches are going to give us sustained fuel. So that's really, really important. Okay, and then on the 50-50 plate, what can you, just looking at this chart real quick, what are some ways that you can think of that you could quickly make a 50-50 plate? Just looking at this.
Oatmeal and fruit.
Sure, that'd be good. That's a very common breakfast that a lot of the really successful weight loss folks have every day.
Yeah.
They don't even change it up. They eat that pretty much every day.
Yeah.
So what could you do with, say, so your oatmeal and fruit, that would be a good one. Can anybody think of anything else?
How about a baked potato with, some combination of veg either to the side or on top of as a
Sounds
topping?
fantastic. Sounds really great. Yeah, there's a lot you can do with potatoes, ton of stuff. Yeah, that would be great.
So dumb question. It's a dumb question. This is something,
There's
We're
no
talking-
such thing as a dumb question.
oh yeah, with me, yeah. But so this is something you do like 3 times a day, correct? Or
Basically, yeah. I mean, whenever you
Okay.
have a meal, you want to try to think in terms of like,
do this 3 times. Okay.
yeah. I mean, by the end of the day, we're going to be talking about another plate in just a second. But
Okay.
by the end of the day, you don't really have to like literally think, okay, this has to be this has to be this. But you just want to kind of get those ideas in your mind so that you're always trying to do the starches and the fruits and vegetables, that you're not just, doing one or the other.
Yeah.
So, but no, that was a great question. So
Yeah.
thanks.
No, I just like simplistic ideas versus menus,
I agree,
So
totally.
This just kind of simplifies things, when I'm trying to think, what can I put in a crock pot today versus, oh, look, I could just, all I need to do is just really this.
Well,
you
good.
know.
I'm so glad you said all those things because you are going to get all those questions hopefully answered today. But that's excellent. Yes. So thank you. All right. So next slide. Oh, now this is an example of our one plate on the left that is simply your starch, basically your pasta. And well, not entirely because you've got your marinara sauce, but so your pasta and it's 800 calories. Well, look what happens when you turn that into a 50-50 plate. All they did was they added some broccoli. They could have added, all kinds of mixed vegetables or whatever they wanted. And all of a sudden you have 50-50 plate, but then you also have less calories, you've got more nutrients, you've got more interest, more variety. So if you just think in terms of how we can, this is actually this is a technique that they actually call calorie dilution too, where you take a food like a whatever that's higher in calories, and then you add your vegetables or you add whatever to make it lower calories. So this is an example of that, but this is a great 50-50 plate. So yeah, okay, next slide. Okay, now sometimes people don't want to do a 50-50 plate. Some people are uncomfortable with starches for whatever reason because they've been misled like I have for many years. Or they just, for whatever reason, don't want to eat a lot of starch. Or sometimes in some cases, people that are kind of at a plateau with their weight loss, sometimes it might be that they don't want to eliminate their starches, but they might want to reduce them a little bit and up the lower calorie fruits and vegetables to break a plateau or just because they might prefer it that way. So that's where we get into the 1/3, 2/3 plate, where you can do either, well, 1/3 starch and then your 2/3 non-starchy vegetables. And that's going to at least still keep you full, but it's going to reduce your calories even more. Now, for some people that need to gain weight, you can go the other direction. Or people that want more starch or whatever, for whatever reason, you like me, I don't know, maybe athletes, you could go the other direction where you go 2/3, 1/3, where your 2/3 starches. But anyway, so the idea is to, rather than just do it 50-50, you can do it 1/3, 2/3. Usually by the end of the day, I figure I'm probably closer to this. Throughout my day, it mixes. I mean, sometimes it's 50-50 probably, sometimes it's 1/3, 2/3, sometimes it's probably 1/4, 3/4. But by the end of the day, I think it all averages out to probably, I don't know, it just depends on the day, I guess, 1/3, 2/3 or whatever. Okay. So, but again, you cannot defeat hunger with willpower, at least not for very long. You might be able to white knuckle it for a little while, but there's going to come a point that you're going to throw in the towel if you're not staying satisfied. So, okay. Okay, so
Just to give you we're not at the halfway point, and we're at 36 minutes. I just want you to know, and I know some of the other slides are pretty quick, but just so you have a gauge of time, this call has about 15 more minutes left, and we've been on for 37 minutes on this presentation.
oh, we've only got 15 minutes left.
Correct.
Oh my, I'm glad you said that, because I was actually,
Don't worry.
when you said halfway, I was thinking we had another 30. Okay, that's good to know. Okay, so looking at this, sometimes people have, well, I created these next two slides. I'll try to just be real quick on this. I know they're very busy. I know they're hard to read, but these are good just if you want to find like what's some legumes, or what are some greens, what are some different grains. When I first started this program, I didn't even know what some of these things were, like millet or quinoa. I still am not sure what farro is. But this is a good way to know where certain things fall into these categories, but it's also a good way to go back one quick second. It's also a good way to look at how many calories per cup, and then you can just pull from this to build a meal. When Beverly was saying, she didn't know what to throw in, well, you just pick a couple from different places, you throw it in, and then next slide, you can add your spices, your herbs, your sauces, your condiments, or whatever. Now, one cautionary thing I would like to say, the spices and herbs are fantastic because you're getting a lot of micronutrients. You got to be careful on the sauces and spreads. Unless you're making them yourself, you need to read the labels, because you might be getting too much oil, too much sugar, high fructose corn syrup, salt, whatever. You want to make sure that those labels are giving you what you want. So another thing real quickly with the beverages, sometimes we don't realize how many calories we're getting out of our beverages. with our coffee that has, cream and all this stuff, you might be getting a lot more calories than you realize. So you want to be cautious and mindful of that. Also with alcoholic beverages, that's one of the areas a lot of times people don't realize that they are getting a lot more calories than they realize, and they're not counting it. And then all of a sudden they get on the scale and they're like, I just can't lose weight. I can't figure this out. Well, you got to look at all the calories that are coming into your bodies, not just from the food, but from the drinks. So a lot of the people will say you don't want to get your calories from drink, you want to get your calories from food. So if you're not going to get your calories from drink, what do you want to be drinking? If you're not getting your calories from from food, what beverages do you want to be drinking?
Water.
Ideally water. That's the best thing we could be drinking. That's what our body wants. Okay. All right, next slide. Okay, this is the difference of 400 calories. This one on the left is actually Chef AJ's lunch almost every single day. She has potatoes and broccoli. Basically, it's 50-50. And she has that basically every day. She keeps it simple. And she really is a rock star when it comes to weight loss. So, and then this one is your walnuts. Tastes great. They're healthy. But you got to be mindful because just a little bit's 400 calories. So you got to measure them out if you're going to be eating your nuts. Some people don't have an issue with nuts if they don't have a weight problem. So, but anyway, now this one, these are supposed to be the same calories, I think, but I kind of question that because it's, well, 100 calories is supposed to be 23 M&Ms. And so if you look at that, it doesn't seem, and then one apple is supposed to be like 80 calories. So that doesn't seem to quite be right. But what is true, absolutely positively again, is that this snack is not, it's going to taste good, but it's not going to last long. It's not going to sustain you. It's not going to be healthy because you're getting the fat and the sugar. This one, you're getting the fiber and the nutrients and the satiety. So obviously the healthier choice is the apples, even though that's not always what we want, but that's obviously the healthier choice. Okay, next slide. Mike, can you tell me what slide number we're on? Just curious.
16.
16. Okay. Okay, quick comparison of 200 calorie foods. As you can see, you get a lot more for 200 calories in some of the foods. As you get into the more processed foods, the hot dog, the candy bar, the gummy bears, you're getting into the little pat of butter. You don't get very much for 200 calories. So if you want to feel satisfied, you want to probably go for the top few. Some other ones that you could add to this, of course, would be grapes, blueberries. I mean, you're going to be getting a ton of nutrients, ton of satiety, maybe not a ton of satiety, but okay, next. Okay, this, again, you've got 1470 calories, 1470 calories in each. Here you've got your coffee with probably your creamer, maybe some flavoring. Somebody say something. Okay, then your breakfast sandwiches or whatever. And then on this side, you've got just a whole variety of all kinds of different foods. With this one, you're probably within, I don't know, maybe an hour or so, you're probably going to be either getting sleepy. You might have a really high blood sugar spike. With these, you're going to be more sustained throughout the day. And you're not going to be having the highs and lows of your blood sugar and all that kind of stuff. Okay, next slide. Okay, the testimonials. This gal is Plentiful Kiki. We're going to be looking at a few people who have been kind of rock stars. Plentiful Kiki is a very beautiful, obviously, woman who lost 70 pounds after her 2 children. She's got 2 cookbooks that are fantastic. They are family friendly. They are tasty. Their pictures are beautiful. She's got a Facebook post. Anyway, she's just she's just a really good one to follow in terms of recipes and food and so forth. Okay, next slide. I can't pronounce this guy's name. Josh, how do I say that?
Lajani.
Okay, well, whatever. This guy, he's been on, well, now the Runner's World magazine, as you can see. He's been on Good Morning America, the Today Show, Rich Roll podcast, and he was a good old Cajun bayou guy that was hunting and fishing and he, as he says, drinking hard, so he was living some pretty hefty, heavy duty lifestyle with his food and his drink. And then he just decided finally that he wanted to, and I think it was in 2011, he finally decided that he wanted to lose weight and get healthy. So he started running. And I mean, he started running when he was as heavy as he is on the left, which just amazes me that he didn't blow out his knees or whatever. But he's pretty inspirational because you look 230 pounds and he doesn't even have any loose skin that I can see, pretty amazing. Anyway, next slide. Chef AJ, she's kind of a big rock star in the whole food plant-based world. She's got all kinds of pithy sayings. She'd been a comedian. She is a comedian still. She still practices some stand-up comedy often. But she is known, I mean, she has really brought the whole food plant-based movement into focus because she, especially since COVID, she started these interviews with doctors, nutritionists, the best doctors that you can find anywhere pretty much. And she's interviewing 2 a day on YouTube or Facebook. And so she's getting so many people recognized and so much information out there. She's got some of these pithy little sayings that you'll hear us talking about. If it's in your house, it's in your mouth, get off the sofas. Full plate, what was the one that I had you put on today, Mike? Lose weight with a full plate. All these are hers, and she's pretty good. She was,
Hey, Bev.
Yeah.
Is Chef AJ, I think, was also a vegan, right?
She was a vegan.
Vegan for years, but didn't lose weight until she really wrapped her brain around the density piece, correct?
That's absolutely correct. That's part of her story. She was a bad vegan. She was eating her Slurpees. Yeah, an unhealthy vegan. She was eating her Slurpees. She was eating her cookies. She was a pastry chef, and she was doing vegan desserts, but they were all, still high calories and stuff. But she is a great example of was a great example of a bad vegan. Now she's a great example of a really, really good vegan. But you're absolutely right. She also she'd been hospitalized at one point for either anorexia nervosa. She had been on, is it called Fin or something for a while? She had done some horrible things. And they actually put her on in a psych ward. And they had her with tubes in her body constantly because she was not doing what she needed to do to be healthy. This is how crazy we can get. She's kind of a master on addiction. A lot of people don't believe that there's necessarily addictions, but she really proposes that there are addictions that are food addictions that we have to be really careful of because we can slip down into that abyss if we're not careful. Anyway, she's also, as a comedian, if ever you have look her up on YouTube. She's got a ton of videos that are fantastic in interviews with people. But one funny one from way back when was when she was on the Johnny Carson show as a comedian. And I was shocked because when she does her interviews and things, she's always sweet and very smart and very kind. But when she was on Johnny Carson, it was almost a little bit slightly raunchy, not raunchy, but embarrassing. So you might want to look it up. It's really funny though. Okay, next slide.
We're down to 6 minutes.
Okay, Heather, this is Heather Goodwin. She lost 300 pounds using Chef AJ's book and program. And I like her I don't really know much about her. I like her because she reminds me of me in terms of her size at one point in time, and, just the stuff that she's been through. Now, her thing, and I've heard Chef AJ echo her this, is that especially if you've got food addictions, that variety can be like the kiss of death, because when you bring in a lot of all the stuff that I want to bring in, like the different seasonings, the condiments or whatever, you might be getting yourself into a little bit of trouble, because the more taste sensations that you allow yourself, the more you might be opening up yourself to possible falls or whatever. But that remains to be seen for me. I'm going to keep using my spices and my condiments until I get to a point that then maybe I'll listen to that point, but I'm not there yet. Anyway, okay, next slide. Oh, this is Esther. She is one of my absolute favorites because I can relate to her in so many ways. When she finally decided to lose weight and get healthy, she was in her 60s, late 60s, maybe early 70s. Here it says this is her at 75. But she, she started at an age that was older. She started heavy. She's written the book From Donuts to Potatoes. Her husband used to actually own a donut shop. And they both have become super, super healthy now. I don't think they're eating donuts anymore, unless, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of spud nuts. I guess they could be eating spud nuts with, which was a donut that they used to sell in Carbondale, Illinois. They were actually made from potatoes, but they also had other stuff, I'm sure. But anyway, she's one of my rock stars. She's got a Facebook post also every day. She posts, like a reflection, or her stuff is kind of poetic and very insightful, very reflective, very compassionate, but she's a good one to follow as well. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is one of the food pyramids that's for food plant-based. Now, I love this pyramid in terms of the beautiful colors, the beautiful images, but what I don't like about this is that the title says whole food plant-based pyramid. If you take out the word whole food, then yes, this is a plant-based pyramid. Everything is plant-based. That absolutely is correct. But when you look at the grains, you're looking at some pastas, which are good, and whole grain breads, which are good, but they are processed. So when you look at your grains or breads or whatever, you do want to try to get, if you're buying store-bought things, you want to try to get as few ingredients as possible for the most part. Check the ingredients, make sure there's no oil, all that kind of stuff. And then also this has oil in it. It's got olive oil, which is plant-based, but we never, ever, ever need to be cooking with oil, ever. So that's the only reason I don't love this chart, but I do love it in terms of the colors of the foods and moving toward the direction of, plant-based. Next slide. This one is a really basic food pyramid for plant-powered weight loss. This one's great. Everything's there literally in black and white, short, sweet, to the point. Okay, next slide. Okay, so then we ask, well, what can I eat if I'm in, whole food plant-based, if I'm trying to do this thing? What can I eat? Well, first of all, you don't have to be fancy. You can go very simply, as long as you need to, as long as you want to, forever if you want to. You can eat the same breakfast if you want, of oatmeal and fruit, or you can eat your, potato every day with your broccoli or whatever. You can do it as simply as you want and whatever, but these are great. And I don't think these are really too difficult when you look at these pictures. I really think for the most part, you could probably, if you're so inclined, create these meals even without recipes, like this black tortilla soup, black bean. It's basically Mike's Mexican bowl with maybe some peas or some stuff added, and they turned it into a soup. I mean, so you can basically look at these and say, okay, well, what is this? What goes in it? And you can probably just create it yourself. But these are exciting. Okay, next slide. Here's some more, the lentil tacos, the grain bowls, the Mexican bean chili or mixed bean chili. Mike's got some great recipes on his handout that are these kinds of foods and others. So next slide. I mean, these are exciting. These are all really exciting. You know, I think when you look at this, this is what gets me excited about whole food plant-based, because it's like, oh my gosh, this sounds so good. Sweet potato black bean quesadillas. I mean, that sounds wonderful. Stuffed peppers, pretty darn good with your rice and possibly onion and beans or whatever. Yum. Okay, next slide. Okay, and here is our own homegrown local rock star whole food plant-based guy. And he has been wonderful in terms of supporting us and helping us. His little quote, "This is about progress, not perfection." I think we've probably all heard it a few times, which is great because we do need to keep remembering that. And Mike has a great handout. If you haven't had a chance to look at it, I think it's great. I've used it a lot. I've printed it a lot. And I printed it like 3 different times because I take it into the kitchen and it gets food on it, or it gets, you know, it gets worn out because I'm constantly turning the pages. But it's a great little handout. It's got some Jeff Novick stuff on it. It's got some other ideas that are just really great. So I would check that out if you haven't had a chance to do so. Okay, so real quick, I'm going to ask you guys some questions, and then if you got any more questions, I'm going to let you guys ask questions.
We got 3 minutes, 3 minutes.
Okay, so think fast, talk fast. Okay, so what are the foods that we want to eat more, weigh less, to live longer? Anybody? Okay, I'm going to tell you since nobody's answered. Our whole foods,
Yeah.
our whole foods above the line. We don't, you know, we want to stay away from the refined and what's it called, calorie rich and refined, or the crap. We want to stay away from that as much as possible. We want to eat above the line, whole food, plant-based. Okay, so what are the ways that we can help us with losing weight? We can use a calorie density chart. We can use the 50-50 plate. We always want to go for satiety. We always want to, and absolutely you want to eat your starches. You don't want to ignore them. You want to eat them. You want to drink more water. Obviously, you want to move. Those are all important things. Okay, so real quick, what is the goal of the calorie density chart? What is our goal with that, do you think? All the things I just said, basically. Eat more, weigh less, whole foods, stay above the line, eat your starches, and so forth and so on. So I won't go through the whole quiz because I think you know it. You guys are all just shy and don't want to talk. So anyway, okay, real quick, I would like to say thank you. Is there anybody that's got any questions before we close it up?
Bev, first of all, fantastic job. You said you weren't sure if you could hold forth for 10 minutes. My goodness.
Well, thank
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess I didn't see tofu. Is that above the line?
That's processed, but it is, Mike, how would you answer that? It is processed.
Yeah, it's definitely
so it's not,
above the line.
okay.
So it is okay, and it's considered a starch?
Yeah, it's a bean. Soybean is basically what tofu is. So it's a bean.
Mhm.
So it's a, you know,
So
it's
it's
not really a starch per se, but it does give you the satiety, the energy,
Right.
and the calories, protein. Yep.
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. I wish I would have thought of that beforehand.
No,
I
no,
watched
not at all.
I know that Mike has shown you and your wife some of your success stories, and that's been inspiring, just so you know.
Well, I'll tell you, Rose did this bacon, tofu bacon with extra firm, and you know, tomatoes are just, you know, everybody's got tomatoes right now. I'm telling you what, it's a great sandwich. This tofu bacon with, you know,
awesome.
tomato and lettuce, and oh yeah, very, very good
Nice.
stuff.
Sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. So we're going to have to close it out in a couple minutes, but I do have one big question for folks that have seen this presentation. And I would just like to ask maybe a couple people to just state what they felt about this presentation was most helpful and most impactful for them. I have a number of things that I thought were really pretty compelling, but I would just like to ask the group, what do you guys think about the presentation was helpful for you?
Well, I really appreciate your presentation. It was awesome. You did a great job. And this is something, I mean, Mike and I just talked, was it yesterday?
Yeah.
This is something that I hadn't really paid attention to in my first year. Calorie density, I just enjoyed the fact, I don't have to, really watch calories and portions. But I'm getting to the point where I'd like to, obviously do better. Pay more attention to that kind of stuff. So this is exactly what I needed. So thank you.
Good, thank you.
Definitely. Anybody else? Very cool. Very cool. Really wonderful job, Bev. I very much appreciate the time and effort you put into this. It's very helpful. I'm going to hopefully be able to post this probably tomorrow morning. I'm going to close it out. It takes a little while to load onto my computer, and I'll be able to post it on the WLS Coaching Group site. And then if anybody would like this presentation, you can just let me know, send me an email or a text, and I can send you the PDF of this presentation because there were so many great things on those slides that she put together. So good stuff, folks. We're going to close it out.
I would like some of those, picture slides that, have the, basically kind of like the calorie groupings.
Yeah.
The ones that, she had to skip over because of time. So
yeah,
I'd love to see those.
Yeah, perfect. I can make sure I send you that PDF. Not a problem. All right, we're going to close it out. So great. Thanks so much for joining us, folks. You guys take care.
Thanks, everybody.